Grace to you all and peace, and welcome to this service, this time of remembrance and thanksgiving for the life of Louis Roland Magor. My name is Paul Corner, and I am the pastor here at Wallingford United Methodist Church in Seattle, and so delighted that each and every one of you has chosen to join us here this morning. My guess is that there are friends from so many circles in Lou's life that have gathered here today. His 30 years here at the church, but so many other places that Lou has been a shining light, a great friend, a mentor, a teacher for so many, and we're grateful that you're here. We're grateful for the 30 years we had him here as music director and friend and mentor and teacher, and I'm sure that you're grateful for him as well. And so we seek to honor him and honor his legacy, especially here at this church and this small little church in Wallingford in Seattle. There's a couple pieces of music in the service today that are recordings of Lou playing, and I hope that those will be a blessing to you as well. But the rest of the music are pieces that members of our choir here at the church chose for this service, meaningful pieces that they have sung with Lou. Unfortunately, we don't have many recordings of our choir singing, so they are recordings of other groups singing these pieces, but pieces that were significant and meaningful to them that they learned from Lou in his time here. So I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to those members of the choir that worked so hard to help me in planning this service: Cave Aurelius, Michael Spencer, Robbie Sherman, and Bruce Sherman, who did a lot of technical work. You'll see some slideshows and some other work that Bruce did as a part of our service as well. Thanks to Peter Minton, a longtime friend of Lou's, who is going to give one of the eulogies today. And thank you to Liz Kennedy, another longtime friend and a member of our church and our choir, who's giving another eulogy. There will also be an opportunity in the service for you to share expressions of gratitude, just short one-sentence words of thanks for Lou and for his influence on your life. You'll see later there's a video where some members of our choir are talking about their gratefulness for Lou. All through this pandemic, every Thursday night, our normal choir rehearsal night got replaced by a Zoom chat that Lou was the MC, and they would all gather together as a choir and talk together, and they did it again this past Thursday night. And Bruce again edited together a nice little video of some of their expressions of gratitude. And following that, there will be an opportunity, I'll give more instructions later, for you to share your words of thanks as well. Finally, you're welcome. Following this service, there will be a virtual coffee chat on Zoom. We've had that all through the pandemic as well at this church. We have our service and then a virtual coffee hour on Zoom, and you'll be welcome to that as well. All of you are welcome to that. I'll drop the link in the live chat towards the end of the service. But again, welcome. Thank you for being here for this time of remembrance and thanksgiving. Hear these words as a call and then an opening prayer. We have all come to this place as part of our journey through grief and loss to say goodbye to Louis Roland Magor, to remember his part in our lives, to celebrate happy memories, and to give thanks for shared experiences. It is built into the fragility of life that there will be times for mourning. These are times to share with one another, stories to tell, shoulders to cry on, helping hands to comfort. Help us to listen to those who grieve, and in our time, lean on the love of this community gathered here today. Together we shall know that sharing sorrow shines light on the darkness of grief. Let us find comfort today in one another. Please pray with me. God of the living and the dead, help us to reverence those who have departed this life and to remember that they live on in us. Through reflecting on their lives, may we gain a better understanding of ourselves and gather up into our own being what was best in theirs. Amen.
That was Remember by Harry Nilsson, combined with, well, hello there, dear old friend of mine, Come In From the Rain by Carol Bayer Sager, or Carol Sager Bayer, one of those two. It was an arrangement done by Wally Harper for Barbara Cook, and it's just one of those things that means a lot to me. I just love that piece.
I confess that when I first started here at Wallingford just 2 years ago, I was a little intimidated by Lou. Not because of anything that he did in relationship to me, but because of the stories I heard about him. And not even about him intimidating others, but the stories of this excellent musician with such a great reputation that had done so much in his career and so much that you all already know about. But as I quickly got to know Lou and saw this bright smile on his face and saw this joyous spirit within him, that whole dynamic quickly changed. He quickly became a treasured colleague for me and even a confidant. He was someone that I went to and someone that I would talk to when I had questions about what was happening in the church, things like that. But more than just a colleague and a confidant, I think I became friends with Lou even in these last 2 years, and I'm grateful for that. Sunday mornings, it was always amusing to me when we were worshiping in person that I was always here first, and I would sometimes go looking for Lou around the time that I knew he showed up because I wanted to talk to him about some things happening in the service. And the way that I knew whether I could find Lou or not is whether his cup of coffee was sitting on the piano or not. And if his cup was there, I knew that somewhere close by Lou was. Hopefully I'd caught him before he went down to join the rest of the coffee crowd at Irwin's at the cafe down the street from us. And we had fun together. Even in this last year of this pandemic, we had to adjust. We had to change so much. And Lou and I had fun together, choosing music together, and even these silly coffee songs that we would choose for the end of our service together. One of the fun stories that someone reminded me of that I'd forgotten about, even from the times when we were in person, Lou and I came from different generations, and we had different music styles, and sometimes I would reference popular songs in my sermons, and as a joke, I'd say, "Lou, do you know that one?" or things like that, and he'd say no and laugh. But one of my favorite ones was we had an occasion where I did that to Lou, and Lou called out, "Know it, I wrote it." And he was so excited about this joke and this huge laugh that he got. He was so excited about this joke. He told me it was coming before the service that he was going to do that. And so that was kind of the spirit of Lou that I got to know. And the spirit that so many of us know. We know about his excellence as a musician, but what we also know is about his excellence as a person and as a spirit, and just so full of joy and so full of life. And he lived in that way of that joy and life and energy that I think is embodied in each and any one of us when we can get out of our own way, right? Sometimes you can be envious of that in a person like Lou, that they can live so fully and so joyfully that way. I suspect that there was work to do for him to get to that point, but I'm so grateful to have had that example in my life. It reminds me of Proverbs 4:23, a wise saying from the Hebrew Scriptures: "Watch over your heart, because it's the wellspring of life." And what was the heart of Lou if not a wellspring of life that poured out not just in the joy that exuded from him, but in that gift, that joy that he offered to everyone around him? And I think that's part of what I've been carrying in this time. My wife said to me soon after Lou passed away, she said, Lou embodied the spirit of that place, meaning this church, that spirit of life and joy and abundance and grace and welcome and love. And part of, as I reflected on it, is like, yes, Lou embodied that because it's the spirit of these people as well. It's the spirit of the friendships that we all have with Lou that he drew us into, that each of us are gifted with as well, that spirit of life and abundance and joy and grace. So if there's anything for each of us, whatever community we're from, is to hang on to that spirit of joy and to allow it to course through us as well, to allow that river to flow through us as well. One of our church members, Michelle Thorson, was helping pack up Lou's belongings in his house. And they came across some school projects, and she came across an autobiography from when Lou was 14 years old, Over the Rainbow. And I wanted to read for you the last page of this autobiography that Michelle sent to me, because part of what jumps out at me in reading this is that spirit of joy and life and abundance and grace and love for others is something that Lou knew from an early age. Listen to these words of 14-year-old Lou. Over the rainbow lies the future. Here are my expectations for that time. I hope to continue with my music and or go into the ministry. I would like to work in Boy Scouts as a leader when I get a little older. Yes, I have many high hopes and expectations, but I believe that if we stick to our hopes and dreams, we can make them work for us as we become better citizens in tomorrow's world. He hoped to continue with his music, and he did. He hoped to continue in the ministry, and he did. He talks about wanting to be a Boy Scout leader, about wanting to influence younger people, and he did. Thank God. Thank God that while it may not have looked exactly like what his 14-year-old self imagined, that in so many ways Lou was able to make his dreams come true and to be a wonderful citizen in tomorrow's world, in our world. What a gift for him, and what a blessing for each and every one of us. Thank you. Amen.
In July of 1990, Lou Magor came to our house to pick up my husband Bob for a get-to-know-you lunch. What a gracious thing to do, to take the time and effort for the new guy directing the Seattle Bach Choir to take Bob, the choir's accompanist, out to lunch. I was on the couch with our 2-month-old baby boy when he arrived. Lou was a warm and personable presence from the first minute we met. Turns out Lou and our son have the same birthday, 45 years apart. So when Lou and Bob got back from lunch, I did urge Lou to apply for the music director position at Wallingford. At his interview, Rita Will firmly told him, "We're a reconciling church, which means we welcome everyone, especially including the LGBTQ community. And if you take this job, you need to be good with that." Lou told her he was. He loved to tell stories about his first visits to our church. Before his interview, he sweltered in a suit, while Colin Ness had just come in from a run and didn't bother to change out of his spandex shorts for church. Lou was impressed. One Sunday, about 2 years later, I arrived at church with my son, then a toddler, and Lou knelt down to Murren's level to talk to him. As an early childhood educator myself, I knew that this was one of the ultimate marks of respect that an adult gives a young child. Later, we made Lou an alternate guardian in our will. And when Murren turned 15 and Lou turned 60, Lou graciously celebrated Murren's birthday at the same gala event. Last year, when Murren was getting married, he and Jessa planned to have the ceremony at Kenyon Hall, but the pandemic canceled plans. My point is, his kindness and respect and delight in children was just one of his amazing qualities. I will miss Lou's presence in church on Sundays. From choir rehearsal at 9:29 to our joke and a prayer in the library, to introit, to time to sit down music after passing the peace, to a sprinkle of music for the children's message, to the anthem, to taking attendance, to offertory, to managing the long-winded announcements, to leading us in a sung benediction. Lou sensitively wove music and humor through our Sundays together, and through 8 or more pastor changes, helped to keep an important portion of the soul of Wallingford carefully preserved and tended to. He was the pedal tone to our many-voiced chorale. He was our cantus firmus. Lou had a wonderful sense of meaningful ritual. He always said, "Would you look at the time?" to end our pre-choir coffee time. And he played a beautiful song from the mid-century American songbook every week for rehearsals. Often as we rubbed each other's shoulders, which was another ritual, you could hear people softly singing or humming along. Every week I was transported. His piano playing was so integral to who he was. It was a native language, a first language in which he was totally fluent. I loved those weekly songs and loved to be surprised by his improvised harmonies, which he also sneaked into our hymns on Sunday, along with key changes just to increase the fun. Yearly, Lou would make an announcement in church and invite people to join the choir, letting them know that anyone would be welcome, and they were welcome, whether or not they could carry a tune or read music. Many of us joined Wallingford by entering through the choir door first. Choir rehearsals with Lou were not the stressful environment that some music directors create. For all his amazing professional experience, he took the Wallingford Choir as we were, but also took the time to carefully nurture what we were capable of, whether it was improving our German or our intonation. In art and in life, it is crucial to understand the problem of perfectionism. Lou knew the difference between getting everything perfectly versus the joy that was created in making music and community together in worship. Lou taught at a small private elementary school in West Seattle for 30 years. He taught the children songs that were funny and songs their grandparents would love. He treasured making the effort for things that he was sure mattered. He taught the children the verse, which is the introductory words to the song Over the Rainbow, the part that so few people know and was not even included in the Wizard of Oz movie. When all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Lou founded a quirky and valuable performance venue called Kenyon Hall in West Seattle, where his mission was to include all kinds of performances. He created a very fun shtick and ritual at intermission that included the youngest member of the audience drawing a winning ticket, and he played the mighty Wurlitzer theater organ. At about 60, when other people are thinking of retirement and relaxing, Lou became an accompanist for the Total Experience Gospel Choir. I talked to him about the experience once, pointing out that he had the flexibility to learn a whole new style of piano playing late in life. He told me that Pat Wright, the founder and director, totally broke down his playing, and he had to start again from the ground up with the demands of that music, which again demonstrate his amazing abilities and his humility in being willing to be a beginner. As tall as Lou was and as long as his stories, he was actually a humble person, a person who moved with humility in this world. Joyous, exacting, generous humility, but humility just the same. Lou had an illustrious career with famous people before he came to Wallingford, and he told us stories through the years at choir. We marveled at the amazing panoply of famous people he knew, and he had the ritual of ringing a bell on the piano when he dropped a name. And so I think about what it might have meant to leave that world of fame and come to Wallingford, to West Seattle, to fully and graciously and humbly accept a new and perhaps smaller life. Of course, at that time he had Ray by his side and when he came to Seattle, and I know that love makes all things possible. Thomas Merton wrote this, and it reminds me of Lou. In humility is the greatest freedom. As long as you have to defend the imaginary self that you think is important, you lose your peace of heart. As soon as you compare that shadow with the shadows of other people, you lose all joy, because you have begun to trade in unrealities, and there is no joy in things that do not exist. Lou was humble, but he was also magnetic. After he died, it became apparent to me that each group he was involved in claimed him as their own. Here, after every church service and choir rehearsal, you could watch a little line of people form around the piano, of people wanting their own minute to talk to Lou. And when you did talk to him, you were the only one that mattered. He never seemed to be in a hurry and leaned in to hear what you had to say. Lou loved his famous friends and experiences, but also was happy and joyful in little old unfamous Wallingford and West Seattle. Everything seemed to delight him: good coffee, good pastry, small children, grumpy adults, music, stories, and jokes. I'd love to take these lessons home, be humble and generous and joyous, just like Lou. Continue to welcome everyone into the choir, just like Lou. Continue to minister each other during rehearsal and start Sundays with a joke and a prayer, just like Lou. I think I might start looking for a flip phone and a couple of really nice pencils.
I'm honored that Reverend Corner has asked me to speak today about our dear Lou. Instead of delivering a eulogy, I like to call it the Loulogy. When someone dies and they are not in your life anymore, we are asked, instead of having a funeral, to have a celebration of life. Of course, we do celebrate Lou's life, and we're going to miss him terribly. What did he leave behind? He did not collect recordings of his work. He liked to make music and make it with others. He left a 2-story house that was almost devoid of furniture. There were no trophies on the wall or on the shelves, and no certificates hanging from the walls. Those are in the basement with the scrapbooks. Did he leave us movies or tapes? Not really. What he left behind were hundreds, at least, of people of all ages to whom he gave the gift of music. Some of them learned at a very young age, such as his Kindermusik and Tilden school classes. From Chicago in the 1960s and San Francisco and Seattle, he led dozens and dozens of choruses over his long career. They were really innumerable. He taught people how to read music, how to sing it, how to conduct it, how to arrange it. And that is something each of them can take and teach the next generation. What he left was a musical ethic, and that is the gift that keeps on giving if we choose to share it. Lou Magor's kindergarten teacher wrote on his report card, "Louis laughs too loud." Anyone who met Lou knows that behavior did not diminish as he got older. In one of Lou's party pieces, called A Bar on the Piccola Marina, part of the verse is, "He elected to retire and later on expire. He joined the feathered choir." Well, now I think of Lou conducting the feathered choir. He did not give us any warning that he would be here today and gone tomorrow. It appears as if I was the last person to have spoken to Lou a few hours before his heart failed. We talked for 55 minutes, which was normal, and sometimes we talked that long twice a day. But to not hear from Lou for another 3 days was very discomforting. Then on the 4th day, I received a call from a member of the church that explained why. I know everybody here was shocked, and there's a big hole in our hearts. Many friends, including his cousins, asked me, when you spoke to him, was he feeling sick? Was he ill? Did he have any signs that something was happening? To which I can only say without any hesitation, no, he did not show any signs. I think of him as being at the top of his game. He was happy, he was funny, he had 2 professional teaching jobs. He had the United Methodist Church choir. He had Kenyon Hall, and he was trying to guide that through the pandemic. He had myriad projects going on. Once in a while, we talked about retirement, or rather, I talked about retirement because he had not considered it. He looked forward to his work, and he had no aspirations for wealth or luxury. He had seen luxury, but he lived his life in a way that afforded him really everything he wanted. His luxuries were things like Kiehl's shaving cream, or his Japanese yukata, which is not to be confused with a kimono, as he corrected me many times. He liked his Brooks Brothers polo shirts and the perfect pencil. Yes, I said the perfect pencil. He was obsessed with high-end pencils and erasers. He did, however, announce a retirement not that long ago. He wrote an invitation announcing the retirement of his blue and white reindeer sweater, a kind of a trademark that had been with him in snapshots we can see going back 5 decades. Do you think it's possible that he quietly purchased an identical one somewhere along the way? The sweater is legendary and shall forever be the skeleton in his closet. When the pandemic occurred, he was filled with trepidation about the virtual classrooms. Miraculously, he discovered that some children who had been fearful or bashful all of a sudden were blossoming from the confines of their home, and they had a new kind of closeness and intimacy with Lou. For many, now when the children had to be told that their teacher had passed away, for many of them it was the first time they had ever thought of anybody in their life dying. So on the first Monday after his death was announced, Whitney, the principal and founder of Tilden School, she gave the children an assignment to write their feelings down. And I'm going to read you some of the feelings written down. One of them said, now these are from 2nd and 4th graders. During spring break, something very sad happened. My wonderful teacher, Lou, passed away. Lou was one of the best music teachers in the whole entire world. Speaking of children, Lou was one of the best music teachers in the whole entire world. I liked how he wore the same pants and sweatshirt a lot. I also loved the songs. Even though we can't see Lou, we know that he'll always be with us. I'm glad he parked his saddle in West Seattle. And they have pictures. Lou was no stranger to funerals. Throughout the 1980s, in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, Lou was often called upon to play at numerous memorials of friends, and I was present for many of them. In the 1970s, once, Lou played me a recording of William Balcom playing the graceful Ghost Rag, which Balcom had composed to play at his father's funeral. And I was moved by this achingly beautiful melody that was sentimental while at the same time uplifting. And Lou loved it. He learned it, added it to his repertoire, and so did Robert Sutherland of the San Francisco Symphony. It served as the perfect composition to play at a memorial service. Lou was the best at what he did, and he knew it. At one time, he was not a coffee drinker, but he told me he always made the coffee after choir rehearsal. And I said to him, why do you make the coffee after choir rehearsal when you're the one who doesn't drink it? He says, because I buy the best coffee and I make the best coffee. Okay. Now, to a reporter, he once said, a director certainly has to like people. You have to deal with a lot of them, deal with their problems, and you have to like getting up in front of a group. You also have to have some kind of a vision that grows and have to keep learning, listening, and working all the time. On Lou's last visit to New York, I took him to a concert, but I would not tell him what it was until we got there. Before the concert, we visited Lincoln Center's Library of the Performing Arts, where they had a Leonard Bernstein centennial exhibit, where we got to see Bernstein's childhood piano, his orchestra scores, and then we adjourned to the concert, which was, to his surprise, an 80th birthday celebration for the graceful Ghost Rag composer, William Balcom, and his colleague, John Corigliano, both of them Pulitzer Prize and Grammy Award winning composers. After the concert, there was a reception at the family penthouse of the Leonard Bernstein family, hosted by his daughter, Jamie. It was a night to remember. Lou believed that young people should study music. As he said, for personal benefits, even if they never teach or get paid anything. Do it for the marked difference in the quality of one's life. Being associated with the arts is worthwhile, but I feel music in particular is worth spending time with. Someone who gets a philosophy degree may never teach. They will probably go into something else. I recommend getting a music degree for the same reason. It is much different than just listening. They may go into business, but they'll have that incredible experience of participating in music. Now, the piano recording we are going to hear now is not Lou, but this is the composer William Balcom playing his own composition, The Graceful Ghost Rag. And I am very confident in my mind that this is a composition Lou would have wanted to be played at his memorial.
As I mentioned earlier, there was going to be an opportunity for you to express just short words of thanks for Lou and what he's meant to you. And so there's a video I'm going to show here in a moment of some of the members of our choir expressing some of their brief gratitudes. And then afterwards, some music will play, some of Lou playing, and there will be instructions on the screen. I invite you in the live chat and YouTube just to put your short remembrances, your short words. Thank you, Lou, for being a friend. Thank you for this song that you put in my heart. Things like that. Ways to express our gratitude for a wonderful life, a life that was a gift to each and every one of us.
I didn't have an opportunity to know him for very long. I so appreciated how he just said, come sing with us. I don't care that you can't read music. That wonderful way of starting our choir practice of music and a back rub was just, you know, sometimes the only touch that I received all week.
And I think part of it was just the joy that came from him about music, and of course his style of a storyteller. He was the best, and funny. Yeah.
Start feeling confident singing with this group, and so much of that was him. You know, I just didn't feel like he just wanted to hear where we were and not beat us up for where he found us, for lack of a better word.
A good way.
There's choir I was in before. I mean, if you sang a challenging hymn, that was about as you know, and yeah, I just really appreciated getting to work with that quality of music.
He probably still
Well,
does.
one of the things that Lou specialized in was playing different chords than the hymn was written in. And he learned how to do it. Robbie, do you remember who he learned that from? He told us who he learned it from.
He read some book or something. He read some article about it and liberated him. Of course, it meant that none of us could sing the harmony parts.
I know.
Right. Our dysfunctional ministers who left, and he took charge of the hymns and he never let go of it.
Lou had to fight to keep his stamp on the music during those times too. But listening to him play introits and music over the offering, all those, it's just such a great schooling in the masterful use of improvisation around different themes. He was just so.
That. Then when my situation changed and I needed to come to a new church, I immediately came to Wallingford because of Lou.
I also think that we were a gift to Lou. And, you know, having known him the entire time he was with us, when he started out, it was sort of like, man, this is a job. Don't bother me. I don't want to talk about theology, anything else. I'm just the pianist. You know, I'm just here for this piece. And even though he was more than the pianist, but over time, he really, it reconnected him to his roots in the Methodist Church. And it was a community that accepted him for who he was.
It's impossible to put into words how life-giving it was to be a part of the choir with Lou.
Friends, receive this benediction. May the love which is stronger than death and which binds us together in the unity of life energize our spirits with divine joy, divine grace, divine abundance and love, love that lived in the heart of our friend Louis Roland Magor and lives in each and every one of us, now and forever. Amen. Hopefully you can stick around and join us for the Zoom coffee hour chat.